Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. At sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin at
It was captured by the microphone. What? Eala stunned the tennis world by whispering to Alexandrova that she was crying. The game was already ended. The scoreboard was no longer moving. After nearly 2 hours of roaring like a jet engine, the Abu Dhabi throng had finally subsided into a low buzzing hum. They shook hands, the required brief palm-to-palm contact that typically marks the end of hostilities. However, the event that is being talked about did not occur at the net. It didn't occur when the coin was flipped. As the cameras were rolling, it took place in the court's shadows. Katerina Alexandrova, the lady who had just methodically destroyed Eala, leaned in as the 20-year-old Filipino sensation packed her luggage with her head down, processing the painful truth of losing in the quarterfinals. She refrained from gloating. She didn't simply leave in celebration. Nobody anticipated what she said. Something that wasn't polished for a sponsor or prepared for a press conference. You'll be a star in the future. It wasn't noisy, the cameras weren't there, and that's precisely why it struck so forcefully. Those words felt like a kind pat on the shoulder at the perfect moment in a sport where veterans frequently leave without a second look, and where the locker room can be as frigid as ice. Everyone needed to hear it, but no one anticipated the moment of the torch passing. Greetings from Champions Tennis, your go-to resource for the most important stories both on and off the court. We're not merely examining a score line today. The match that rocked the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open is being examined in detail. One sentence from a Russian veteran may be the catalyst Eala needs to take the globe by storm, as seen by the heartbreaking aftermath that had the internet in tears. This is the tale of perseverance, elegance, and women's tennis's future. You must comprehend the conflict that preceded those words in order to appreciate their significance. The Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open in 2026 served as the backdrop. The tension was evident, and the heat was oppressive. Alexandrova Ekaterina stood on one side of the net. She's a titan of the tour at the age of 31, a woman who only months earlier had achieved a career-high position of number 10 in the world. There's a reason she's referred to as the Ice Queen. Flat, thundering ground strokes that skid off the court like stones on water are the foundation of her game. She uses violence instead of spin when she plays. Teenagers are her breakfast, as she is the type of veteran. The pride of the Philippines, Alexandra Alexa, was on the other side. Since she was a junior, the Rafa Nadal Academy alumnus has been bearing the aspirations of an entire archipelago. In her native nation, she is more than just a tennis player. She is a treasure of the country. Millions of people watch every match she plays. Numerous admirers who think she is the chosen one have examined every issue. The odds were against her going into this battle, though. The underdog was Eala. One of the strongest hitters in the women's game is facing up against the resilient fighter. The story was established. The prodigy confronts the seasoned, hunger versus experience, heart versus power. Furthermore, reality quickly set in as the umpire signaled play. The game got off to a fast start. You missed the ball if you blinked. Alexandrova came out swinging, her racket like a sledgehammer rather than a piece of athletic gear. Just the opening game, which went to 4 deuces, was an attrition fight. However, Alexandrova maintained her composure before letting out the beast. Eala found herself facing a 0-3 disadvantage in a matter of minutes. It appeared to be a blowout. It appeared that the opponent was too strong and the moment was too enormous. The Filipino fire was being frozen by the Ice Queen before it could even start. However, this is when the narrative becomes intriguing. Eala demonstrated to the world why she belonged at this point. She didn't fold. She remained calm, energized by a large, supportive audience. The stadium was filled with Filipino flags, and she started digging her heels in. She discovered her range. She began to break Alexandrova's rhythm with her lefty spin. She retaliated. The margin narrowed to 1-2. She then struggled to keep in contact. The rallies got heated. Both ladies traded smashes from the baseline, their shoes shrieking against the hardcourt and their lungs burning. Eala was awarded 2 break points at 15-40 at one point. It exploded in the stadium. This was the pivotal moment. The momentum would shift if she could simply convert this. However, Alexandrova handled the situation with the composure of a woman who had served in the military for more than 10 years. With clutch serving, she eliminated the break points and ended the set 6-3. The brutality of professional tennis was reflected in the second set. Eala engaged in combat. To tie the set at 3-all, she overcame yet another early deficit. There she was. She was breathing down the 11th-ranked player in the world. In tennis, however, it hardly matters. Alexandrova pulled away to win 6-3 after turning up the dial and striking lines with surgical accuracy, 3 minutes to 6. The game was over. Eala was defeated. It was a straight sets loss on paper. The favorite won as expected, but the emotional cost was evident. Had given it her all. She was departing empty-handed, despite having pushed a top-tier player. The players shook hands respectfully as they walked toward the net. Normally stoic, Alexandrova nodded. However, what transpired next was what made tennis fans around the world smile. Approached her bench. Trying not to show the despair on her face, she started the lonely ritual of packing up, putting the rackets away and collecting the towel. In athletics, that is the most lonely moment. The winner is being applauded by the audience. You are alone yourself with your thoughts as the cameras are trained on the winner. At that point, Katerina Alexandrova deviated from her usual behavior. She approached. She was not required to. Instead, she leaned in toward the young Filipina, even though she could have waved to the audience and gone to her interview. "You'll be a star in the future." She said 5 simple words, yet they were hers. Enormous. When fans viewed the video again, they saw Eala's response right away. After a moment of silence and a startled expression, her face softened again. Because it means something different to receive support from someone who just beat you. It recognizes potential rather than outcomes. It gives the battle legitimacy. In the post-match interview, Alexandrova emphasized, "I see you, I felt your power, you belong here." With her voice resonating across the PA system, Alexandrova addressed the crowd. When the interviewer asked about the match, she didn't talk about her own brilliance. She talked about Eala. "I knew she was going to play good. She's a great player. I saw her last match. I knew it was going to be difficult." She even acknowledged the elephant in the room, the crowd. "I know they're cheering for her." She smiled, but the atmosphere was great. It was a masterclass in class. A veteran acknowledging that while she won the battle, the war for the future belongs to players like Eala. The internet, as you can imagine, went absolutely nuclear. Within hours, clips of the interaction were circulating on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. The Filipino fan base, known as one of the most passionate digital armies in the world, flooded the comment sections with hearts and praise, not just for her but for Alexandrova. "Pure class from Alexandrova." One top comment read, "She knows a real talent when she sees one." Another fan wrote, "Alexandrova usually destroys opponents and walks away." For her to stop and say this, Eala is the real deal. This moment reshaped how the loss was remembered. Instead of headlines reading, "Eala crashes out of Abu Dhabi," the narrative became, "Alexandrova anoints Eala as future queen." It shifted the focus from the defeat to the potential. It turned a loss into a lesson and a heartbreak into hope. But why does this matter so much? Why are we making an entire video about a 5-word sentence? Because women's tennis is brutal. It is a solitary confinement of travel, hotels, and pressure. For a young player like Eala who has been in the spotlight since she was a child, the pressure is unimaginable. She isn't just playing for herself. She is playing for a country that is starving for a tennis icon. Every loss feels like a national tragedy. Every win feels like a holiday. To have a top 15 player, a woman who has stood across the net from Iga Swiatek and Aryna Sabalenka look you in the eye and say you are a future star is validation that the path is correct. It quiets the doubts. It silences the critics who say she's too small or her serve isn't big enough. This kind of recognition from an established champion carries a weight that no amount of social media hype or national pride can manufacture. It's earned respect from someone who has fought the same battles, who knows what it takes to survive on tour, and who sees something special in the young Filipina's game. Now, let's not get too carried away with the fairy tale. We have to look at the cold, hard facts of the tour because Champions Tennisitics keeps it real. Following that emotional high in Abu Dhabi, Eala faced a reality check. She flew to Doha for the Qatar Open, a massive WTA 1000 event. The expectations were high, fans were buzzing, but the tour is unforgiving. In the first round, she faced Teresa Valentova, another rising teen star. The magic of Abu Dhabi didn't travel with her. Eala lost in the first round. It was a tough blow. It meant a dip in the rankings. It meant the prize money was significantly less. It was a reminder that potential is one thing, but consistency is another. But here is where Alexandrova's words become a shield. A future star doesn't mean you win every match today. It means you have the tools to win the big ones tomorrow. The current landscape of the WTA is shifting dramatically. We are seeing the old guard, the Halaps, the Kvovas slowly fading into the sunset of their careers. We are witnessing the continued dominance of Sutek and Sabalenka at the very top. But there is a vacuum forming for the next generation. Who will fill it? Will it be Russia's Mira Andreeva, who has been making waves with her aggressive baseline game? Will it be Coco Gauff, who already has a Grand Slam title under her belt? Or could it be Eala, the girl from Manila who refuses to give up? Eala has the pedigree. She trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy, the same factory of grit and determination that produced Kasper Rde and numerous other successful professionals. She has the work ethic. You can see it in how she chased down every ball against Alexandrova. Even when down 0-3, she has the shots. Her forehand down the line is a weapon of mass destruction when it lands. Her lefty serve, when it's working, can be a nightmare for opponents to read. What she needs now is time and belief. This 2026 season is absolutely critical for Eala's development. She has broken into the top 50, a historic feat for a Southeast Asian player. No woman from the Philippines has ever achieved what she's already accomplished in professional tennis. But staying there, that's the hard part. The difference between being a top 50 player and a top 20 player isn't just about talent. It's about week in, week out consistency. It's about handling the pressure when you're no longer the underdog, but the player everyone else is gunning for. It's about maintaining your physical and mental health through a grueling 11-month season that spans continents and time zones. Her team needs to be smart about scheduling going forward. One of the biggest mistakes young players make is playing too many tournaments. They're hungry. They want to climb the rankings and they say yes to everything. But the WTA Tour is a marathon, not a sprint. Playing 35 tournaments a year will burn you out. Your body will break down. Your ranking will actually suffer because you'll be exhausted and losing early rounds at events you should be winning. The smart play is to pick your spots, to focus on tournaments where you can realistically make deep runs, and to build in recovery weeks where you're training but not competing. Eala also needs to continue working on the mental side of her game. Tennis is as much a mental battle as it is physical. The best players in the world aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest serves or the fastest forehands. They're the ones who can manage their emotions, who can stay calm when they're down break point in the third set, who can execute their game plan even when nothing seems to be working. Sports psychologists are just as important as coaches at this level, learning how to breathe through the pressure, how to reset after a bad game, how to maintain belief even when losing. These are skills that separate the good from the great. There's also the question of her physical development. At 20 years old, Eala is still maturing physically. A lot of players add significant power to their game between ages 20 and 23 as their bodies fully develop. If she can add just 5 or 10% more pace on her ground strokes without sacrificing control, that could be the difference between being a solid top 50 player and being a legitimate Grand Slam threat. The serve is obviously the area that needs the most work. In modern women's tennis, you cannot afford to have a serve that's regularly getting broken. The top players are too good at returning. They'll sit on your second serve and blast it back down your throat. Let's talk about what Alexandrova's career can teach Eala. Alexandrova is a perfect case study in persistence. She didn't burst onto the scene as a teenage prodigy. She didn't win junior Grand Slams or get massive sponsorship deals at age 16. She worked her way up slowly, grinding through challenges and qualifying rounds, building her game piece by piece. She didn't reach the top 10 until she was 28 years old. 28. Most players would have given up by then, convinced they'd hit their ceiling. But she kept believing, kept improving, and eventually broke through. That's a powerful lesson for any young player. Your timeline doesn't have to match anyone else's. The Filipino tennis community is watching all of this with breathless anticipation. The Philippines has produced world-class athletes in boxing with Manny Pacquiao, in basketball, in various other sports. But tennis has always been the domain of the elite, the sport that required resources and training facilities that weren't readily available in the country. Eala represents a breaking of that barrier. She's proof that a Filipino can compete at the highest levels of tennis. Every time she steps on court, she's carrying the dreams of young Filipino kids who are picking up a racket for the first time. That's both an incredible honor and an enormous burden. The pressure on her is something that players from traditional tennis powerhouses like the United States, Russia, or European countries don't fully understand. When you're one of many, when there are 5 or 10 players from your country in the top 100, a loss is just a loss. When you're the only one, when you're carrying an entire nation's tennis hopes, every defeat feels magnified. Every win is celebrated like a national holiday. Learning to manage that pressure to play for herself while also honoring the support of her country, that's a delicate balance that Eala will need to master. Social media adds another layer of complexity. Eala is active on platforms, engaging with fans, and that connection is beautiful. Filipino fans are incredibly loyal and supportive, but social media can also be toxic. After a bad loss, the trolls come out. The hot takes start flying. People who have never held a tennis racket in their lives will criticize every aspect of your game. Learning to tune out the noise, to take the love without absorbing the hate, is a crucial skill for any modern athlete. Mental health on tour is a real issue that we're only now starting to address openly thanks to players like Naomi Osaka speaking up. The coaching situation is also vital. Eala needs a coach who understands not just tennis technique, but also the unique pressure she's facing. Someone who can be part technical guru, part sports psychologist, part travel companion. The coach-player relationship in tennis is incredibly intimate. You're spending more time with your coach than with your family. They see you at your best and your worst. They know your fears and your dreams. Finding the right fit is like finding the right life partner. When it works, it's magic. When it doesn't, it can derail a career. Looking ahead to the rest of 2026, Eala has some crucial decisions to make about her schedule. The Grand Slams are obviously the priority. Every player dreams of winning majors, but for a player at her ranking level, the focus should actually be on the smaller tournaments where she can win matches and build confidence. Winning a WTA 250 or 500 event would be absolutely massive for her development. It would prove she can win a tournament at the highest level. It would give her the belief that she belongs. It would also come with significant ranking points that could push her into the top 30 or even top 20. The clay court season could be particularly interesting for training at the Rafa Nadal Academy means she spent countless hours on clay, the surface that Nadal himself mastered like no one in history. Her game style with the lefty spin and the defensive skills could translate very well to clay. The balls sit up higher, giving her more time to set up her shots. The surface rewards patience and consistency, which are strengths of her game. Don't be surprised if she has her breakthrough tournament on the red dirt somewhere in Europe. Oh, excited Spain, but I'm so excited to be here. Excited. I think it's only normal that with a loss comes disappointment and being upset, but then again, it's another opportunity. Alex, after a terrific year last year, how does it feel to be making your main draw debut with Melbourne? It feels great. I'm super excited. Surprise, excited.